Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson is located here on Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We are gathered here today, both in person and virtually, to celebrate the launch of If You Can Dream It, You Can Do It, How 25 Inspiring Individuals Found Their Dream Jobs by Colleen Nelson and Kathie MacIsaac. I'd like to express my most sincere thanks to Pajama Press for publishing this book so that we do have a reason to gather this evening, and of course for all their help in planning the evening as well. I won't take up too much of your time right out of the gate, just have a few quick housekeeping notes to review, then I will turn things over to the people you are truly here to see. It feels particularly fantastic to be celebrating both Colleen and Kathie here this evening, as they basically qualify as unofficial members of the McNally Robinson family. We could set up cots for both of them upstairs, and it would seem like a perfectly natural environment. But whenever they come in, we know that they know the names of all the folks here, we know them by sight, and we know that a few moments after that, we'll be seeing pictures of all the books they purchased on social media the moment they walk out our front door. So it's always lovely to collaborate with them on a book purchasing aspect, but so delightful when we're able to launch books by Colleen. And now tonight we are launching Kathie's first book as well, which feels particularly special. So this evening we'll begin with a presentation by each of our special guests right up here at the podium. Following that, they'll then move along to these tall stools, which are just over to the side, and then they'll have a brief conversation before we turn the evening over to you folks for some questions. Now, if you're here in person, all I'll ask is that you please put up your hand. I'll rush over to you, ask you to tell me the question, and I'll then repeat it into this microphone. That ensures that everybody at home can hear exactly what you're saying. As I have no short-term recall anymore whatsoever, I do ask that you please keep your question as a question, and just make sure that it is something I can relate. I will not do justice to your poetic words if you do go on it late, but rest assured you will have ample time to say very nice things to Kathie and Colleen when we move along to the actual signing at the close of the event. At the end of the event, I'll ask you all to remain seated while I safely transport them over to the signing table, and you can look forward to some absolutely thrilling notes about signing procedure later on. Now, the one thing I will point out is that if you are watching on YouTube, and I know there's a lot of you out there right now, you can also participate in the Q&A. Please feel free to just write your questions in the chat and we will put them to tonight's guests as time permits. But that is more than enough for me right now. Our first guest this evening, Colleen Nelson, is a teacher and author from here in Winnipeg. Her novels include Undercover Book List, which has been nominated for the Reader's Choice Awards in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and also for the Silver Birch Award. Harvey takes the lead. Harvey Comes Home, a winner of both Saskatchewan Young Reader's Choice Award and McNally Robinson Book of the Year for Young People, and Governor General's Award finalist Harvey holds his own. Colleen writes daily, in between appearances at hockey rinks and baseball diamonds in support of her two sports-loving sons. The family's West Highland Terrier Rosie adds an extra lovable dose of liveliness, squirrel chasing, and shoe chewing to their lives. Kathie MacIsaac is an award-winning literacy advocate who is passionate about books for middle grade readers, definitely a book champion. She manages the children's department of a rural public library near Winnipeg, where she lives with her husband and her daughter. She is a co-author of the blog Bit About Books and a co-founder of the website MG Book Village, which facilitates connections between members of the middle grade community. This is Kathie's first book and Colleen's first work of nonfiction. Please join me in welcoming, speaking first, Colleen Nelson.
Thank you, John. It's always such a pleasure to be here at McNally, mainly to hear John's voice, but also because they are, in fact, the best bookstore in the world. So, super excited to be here, I have to say. So Kathie and I have known each other for a long time, and the idea for this book came in a very early morning pre-coffee moment of clarity that clearly the world needed to have a career book made for children. And I texted Kathie, any interest in writing a nonfiction book with me about jobs? And her response came back immediately, and it was a yes. And honestly, it just took that to get this whole thing started. And it's been a very joyful experience to work with Kathie. So our book is If You Can Dream It, You Can Do It. And it's a career book, but it's also a little bit more than that, because each of the 25 profiles also features sidebars that are children who are doing the job now or spin-off jobs. So we wanted to take these really interesting people and just show kids how they one day could also be inspiring people like they are. So I'm going to turn it over now to Kathie so that she can read you one of our favorite profiles.
So it was actually almost 20 years ago that I first heard the name Deanne Shulman. And she is the first female smoke jumper that was part of the US Forest Service. I think she started in 1981. And at that time I thought, you know, that's a really cool job. I would love to be able to do some research and learn more and maybe someday write a book on a smoke jumper. And here, 20 years later, the first thing I was looking for when we decided to do this book was a female smoke jumper. And I was super excited to get Martha Shoppy, who answered so many cool questions. And I learned so much about it. So it's kind of a coming around for me. So I'll read you Martha's profile. And her first quote says, "I get to work with people who also enjoy working hard and completing challenging tasks in the outdoors." Martha is one of a handful of women who jump out of airplanes and parachute into remote areas to fight wildland fires. She had a decade of experience working outdoor jobs before she spent a season managing invasive plants with the Forest Service. She was already trained to fight wildfires, but after seeing a couple fires start, she decided to make it her job. Martha spent 6 years as a seasonal firefighter during the summer months. She and other firefighters would contain or put a line around a fire, control it and prevent it from moving past the line, and then put it out. Martha loved the physical and the mental challenges of being a firefighter. After working for several kinds of crew, she applied to become a smoke jumper, a job that would require the most extreme training and testing of skill and strength. The United States has 9 federal smoke jumper bases located throughout the western states, with a total of 450 jumpers. Each spring, every smoke jumper must undergo rigorous training that tests their physical endurance and their parachuting skills. During a fire season, smoke jumpers rotate between bases and smaller outstations, depending on where the wildfires are burning. Anywhere from 2 to 24 smoke jumpers will respond to a wildfire. Martha enjoys getting to work with firefighters from all over the country and mentoring rookies. She also likes leading crews and teaching fire training to small groups of people. Smoke jumpers are responsible for making and repairing their own gear, which I thought was crazy on top of everything else, which includes jump pants, jackets, and backpacks. The clothing's made with padded Kevlar, the same material that's used to make bulletproof vests. When Martha's in the air ready to jump, she carries 100 pounds of extra weight when from all her supplies and gear. Then the crew in the aircraft drop the remaining of the gear, so food, water, firefighting tools, by parachute after she lands. All of this gear ensures that Martha can be self-sufficient for 72 hours. She must quickly retrieve it and get right to work. Each fire differs due to topography, weather, and vegetation type. So Martha never knows what will be required of her until she arrives at the scene. She may need to clear access for ground crews to arrive. If a fire break is necessary, she needs to cut down trees or clear brush. Sometimes she must dig a fire line. She has to be prepared to work in wet, dry, smoky, and buggy conditions for hours. When she isn't fighting a fire, Martha spends time packing cargo boxes, maintaining and fixing equipment, exercising, and making sure she's ready to respond immediately to the next call. Sometimes she reads or cooks. She has very few days off, but she was required to take at least 1 day off every 3 weeks. Once the fire season slows in the fall, Martha's free until next spring. Since wildland firefighters often work a year's worth of hours in just 6 months, they can take time off for family, travel, and adventure during the off season. Martha's job requires her to be in excellent shape, so she stays active, competing in running races, ice climbing, skiing, and traveling. Martha still has so much to learn about being a smoke jumper. Parachuting skills, sewing, manufacturing, and repairing gear require a lot of practice. Martha loves her job and plans to stay fit enough to be a smoke jumper for many years to come. One of Martha's pro tips is to stay healthy and strong and actively participate in outdoor activities. If you're interested in becoming a smoke jumper, why not take a wilderness survival course to learn some skills that you might need in the outdoors? Here's a fun fact for you. While most skydivers jump from 14,000 feet above ground level, smoke jumpers actually parachute from only 3,000 feet. Their job is to get quickly to the ground so they can get right to work. And if you think that maybe smoke jumping is a little too adventurous for you, here are some spin-off jobs that you can do that are related to that. So helicopter pilots drop water or chemicals on a forest fire to help contain it. Flight paramedics provide medical assistance aboard aircraft, often in remote locations. And fire ecologists study how wildland fires start, as well as their relationship with the environment and the animals around them.
Now we get to do the fun part, which is the Q&A, and nothing too challenging. We've like mutually agreed that we'll take it easy on each other. You get to go first.
We haven't to discuss these questions ahead of time, so it's going to be very, Okay, question number 1. What's one interesting thing you learned while interviewing people for this book?
Okay, we're going to both be saying like, oh, that's such a good question. Well, I think I had no experience interviewing people like this, and I have actually, for the last 2 years, had my students do what we do, because I think you learn so much about how to talk to somebody, how to listen to somebody, how to ask good open-ended questions, and I've also learned how to be quiet. I tend to see like I'm always like, and oh, really? So just be quiet and let them talk. And sometimes I want to like jump in because I think they're finished, but then I would just wait. And then there was more. So I've tried to do that in my actual life too, even though my sister probably thinks I don't. But so yeah, I would say learning how to interview somebody and then continuing to like ask questions to dig deeper and not just leaving it at the surface level. Okay, are you ready for yours?
I am.
Okay, you probably can guess. So as a debut author, what was the biggest surprise you had?
I'm not a very patient person, and I had to learn patience through the publishing process. You were awesome about answering any of the questions that I had, but just not knowing, is it normal for this to be taking this amount of time, or when do we do the next stage? And then sometimes it's kind of a hurry up and wait. So it's okay, we're all ready to go. We're all ready to go. Now go fast, kind of thing, right? Yeah. So yeah, the pace of things, I guess. Do you want to explain the timeline, like, because it's kind of funny? Yeah, how timing works. Yeah. So Colleen contacted me the first day that I was on a layoff from my job for a month, and so it was just kind of good timing that she was able to say, "Hey, you want to do this now?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have a free month. I guess we can get into it, right?" So it'll only take a month to get this thing together. Sure. So that was almost exactly November of 2020 is when we started that. So then the interview stages, and then you're also working with other people's timelines. So when can you do an interview? When can you send us a picture? When can we get permissions? And then a lot of our spin-off jobs or living the dream, we were talking to people for that as well. So yeah. So the 2 years from start to finish, I didn't know what to expect, and I will be have a much better understanding now
Yeah.
how that works.
Yeah, and so last February was when we really got intense about the edits, and then Scott Ritchie, who did the illustrations, he had to get his pictures done. So it felt like we'd been waiting, and then all of a sudden it was like, and this needs to be done in 3 weeks. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is really gonna happen. And then you get like there's something called an FNG, and that's the folded and gathered, and it's like a soft cover version, so you can look at the proofs of it. And that came in the summer, and that was really cool too. So yeah, it's like it keeps the momentum going, that you're like, oh, okay, and the next cool thing.
And then we get a copy of like finished copy. We each got that early, and then your author copies show up. So yeah, it kind of strings you along. To give you those little perks along the way.
Yeah, it's a bit like a drug dealer.
Yeah. I'm kind of hooked. This will be my only book.
Exactly. Okay, your turn.
Okay. What did you find the most challenging about writing nonfiction, and how did that differ from your fiction writing process?
So something I really enjoyed with this was that I could write each of the 2-page spreads of portfolio, or the profile is about 650 words. And it was very gratifying to know that I could sit down, I could write 650 words in, a time, like realistically, I think they took, like a couple hours, not including the edits that came afterwards, but it was very gratifying to go like, check, that one's done, and to see that finished. Whereas a chapter book, which is like 40,000 words, and it's months and months of plugging along at it. So I think that for me it made it really enjoyable actually. And I like that I could sneak something in between other projects. And it always felt like there was a bit of momentum while I was writing it. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that question, Kathie. Okay, tell me, what is your favorite part of this writing process and your least favorite part?
Oh, goodness. Favorite part, and I'm not just saying this, but I love working with you.
So I was hoping you'd say that. It would have been so awkward.
Not only for a debut author who just like had so much to learn, and you just were able to answer every question that I had. So it showed so much patience, and like, Colleen, what about this? Colleen, what about that? But just like having somebody else to bounce ideas off with. And I just felt like my brain worked better when we could kind of collaborate on things, or you'd see a different angle of something. And so, yeah, that was definitely the best part.
Remembering when I had something I really need to talk to you about. And then I saw that you were on like a staycation with Cameron. and then you said, I actually don't have my cell phone. I'm like, what? But I need to talk to you. What do you mean you're not available?
And I'm really praying that you have Do Not Disturb on, because I send you all kinds of texts at weird hours when I get up to write. And so,
with that collaboration process, I think that's what made it so fun. And
yet you and I have talked a few times about wondering like if somebody who's reading the book would be able to tell which of us wrote the profiles, because they seem to come together really well, even though we wrote them independently.
Yeah, and that would be my biggest surprise, because we didn't know how neither one of us had done this before.
Yeah,
but I do feel like it's pretty seamless.
Yes,
and you can tell who wrote which one.
Okay. Okay, here's a tough one. If you knew at 20 what you know now about your career path, what's one thing you would have done differently?
Take a leave during COVID. No kidding. Sorry, but I really like my career path. I don't think I would change anything. I think they kind of nailed it. Awesome. I'm a teacher, grade 7, 8 this year, and I love it. And I think I love the trajectory that it went on, and being around kids and having taught like so many different age groups. Yeah. So I think being a teacher is a great profession. Yeah, that's another excellent question, Kathie. Okay, so if you had to pick one job from this book for you, which one would it be?
Goodness, for me. Well, I am not going to be a smoke jumper, and I am not going to be a storm chaser, although I would like to think I would be daring and adventurous. I would probably have to be a teacher like Rabia. Yeah. Rabia's story was really inspiring, and I think that would be the type of job that I would like to do.
And that was something we really were proud of, is the wide range of people that are included in the book. and they're all so inspiring. Like it was so cool to talk to somebody and then discover there was a whole additional story that I may not have even known about. And then that came up in the interview.
And then we would quite often text each other. It's like, I just finished the interview with the ornithologist. I want to be an ornithologist now. I think after every interview that seems to happen. So
for me, it was the farmer.
Yeah.
Like after I talked to Brenda, I was like, how come everybody's not a farmer? Like this sounds like the coolest job. So I love talking to her. It's your turn.
My turn. Which person, dead or alive, would you like to have a 40-minute Zoom interview with about their dream job?
Whoa. Oh my heavens. About their dream job. Oh my goodness. I think I should have asked you to let me see these. Who would I most want to talk to? Eek. Okay, I'm just going to say Margaret Atwood because I just want to talk to her. I don't care if it's about a dream job or whatever. I just think talking to her would be pretty amazing. Okay, what about you? It's a hard question.
I actually, Cameron said you better think of an answer for that one. You know what? For me, it would actually be John Shue. Mr. Shoes, the book. I just admire what he does so much, and I've been to conferences and seen him speak, and I always said I wanted to be Mr. Shoe when I grew up, and just to be able, I think to be able to talk with him one-on-one and just kind of see his process and his passion and just kind of learn from him.
Don't you feel like you already kind of do his job?
Well, I would like to get paid for it.
Okay.
But I do, if I could be the Canadian Mr. Shoe, I'd be quite happy with that. So
I think you're well on your way. Okay, I'm going to ask a question that kind of goes on a different bend.
Okay.
So you're very active on social media.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on the latest issues with Twitter. How is this going to hit you?
It's funny. I put out a tweet the other day saying, you know how the musicians stayed on the Titanic when it was sinking and there was chaos and everything was going on all around? I said, I'm going to be one of those musicians.
Sticking in there. You're not jumping ship.
You know what? Twitter is my place, and I have made such a wonderful network of people who enjoy children's literature and have made me a better person, like just smarter and better. And at a conference I was speaking at, you attended last week, I was talking about how, you're in your own little pond in your world, and quite often you'll get exposed to ideas and people that are kind of outside of that. And I feel like Twitter is kind of like jumping into the ocean and seeing so many ideas and perspectives and listening to people that I wouldn't hear in my everyday life. And it's just made me so much better at my job and what I do that, yes, I'm hoping, I know a lot of people are not sure what's going to happen with Twitter. I don't see myself jumping ship at this point in time. And I'm hoping, if I can keep my little network of people, it would be all good. But I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
But
that's good. So you're hanging in there.
I am hanging in there. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, here's a question for you. Since today is I Read Canadian Day, can you share a book by a Canadian author that you would recommend?
Oh my goodness. How long do we have? Go great. We're going to be here all night. Well, I can tell you at school, I'm reading Butt Sandwich and Tree by Wesley King right now. Love that one. Sit by Deborah Ellis. The students have also read that, and that's just like perfection. 10 short stories or 11 short stories. And I'm trying to think what I'm reading right now at home or something that I just finished. I'm going to go with The Uniquely Fox because I'm a big fan of the author, and reading a book about a neurodivergent student, it gave me such a great perspective. So those are going to be my picks. But there's so many good Canadian books. It's very hard to narrow it down.
Amazing to see so many people sharing their books and recommendations today on social media. There's so many great titles. So.
I know. Yes, right now you're part of that.
I know.
Okay. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to a kid who's reading our book?
I would have to say that so many people in our book had no idea what they wanted to do when they got out of high school. So many kids, I think, feel pressured by the time you reach 16, 17. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And whether that's self-imposed or whether that comes from school. And I would just say that, follow what you're passionate about and leave yourself open to seeing, what you might experience when you get either university, college. you can find satisfying and fulfilling things. You don't have to go the post-secondary route. A lot of our people have done apprenticeships or started their own businesses. And yeah, I think that everybody who enjoys what they're doing has followed a passion. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Follow your passion.
Yeah. Okay, that was my last.
That was mine.
Oh, perfect. Look at that. Sharing a break. Okay, I believe we're gonna ask John to come and use his radio announcer voice to see if there's any questions.
And we do have a question from online, so I can start off with that. So this is a question from Gayla, I believe.
Oh, Galia.
Galia, thank you. How did you find the people whose jobs you featured?
Good question. Well, at first, hello to all of our online people,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of you are following tonight, and we really appreciate that. Or friends, sorry. Do you want to go ahead with that, or do you want me to?
No, you can go.
A lot
Yeah.
of Googling.
Yeah.
A lot of Googling. And we tried to find unique angles that people had to. So we didn't just want to find, animal interpreter. I found the woman who's blind and does it in the States. At one of the zoos, and so finding somebody who has a unique experience was tricky to do, but we really wanted any kid to be able to pick up the book and see someone who looked like them and kind of say, hey, I could do that. And so though it was the most tricky part of what we did, I think it was the most rewarding part.
Yeah.
Especially to see people now and the feedback. A lot of the feedback we've been getting from reviews is, you've included kind of far out there jobs, but also everyday jobs, and you've just included such a wide variety of people.
Yeah. It was also cool, I think, when we did pick somebody, I think our success rate for a request and then the interview, sometimes I think it worked really well because people were like, I do have a story to tell. Like, I do want to share how I got this job, and that made it, like, Christine is a carpenter, and it does builds homes for women's shelters, and just had so many pieces to how she did her job that it made it really interesting, and she was so happy to share about that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Were there any local questions? Yes. Do you think you'll be working on another book like this?
Well, so thanks for asking, my good friend Maureen. Why, yes, we are, and thank you so much for asking. Yes, we are currently in the middle of the second volume, and it comes out next fall. So you might all get to return.
You're all invited back. And this process, I think, is already going more smoothly just because we kind of got one behind our belt.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I tried to kind of guesstimate how much time between research, finding the sidebars, getting the interview. I feel like each one took a total of 13 hours.
Oh, okay, I never took
that. So if I, times 25, but this time the research, I feel like that's coming a bit easier. We know our search terms, like talk about a library lesson on good search terms. That's been helpful. Like how you learn quick, don't look up little boys' rashes when on Google. Like, don't do that. I don't care what rash my kid has. Not do that one.
No. Yeah. One thing I have found more challenging this time though is people were more available during COVID for interviews. So it can be trickier to actually, a lot of people are overworked right now and really busy. So it can be harder to connect.
I agree. Yeah. John looks like he has another question.
Oh, yes, indeed. So a lot of people have questions about, more information about the co-writing process with you both. But Michelle specifically was wondering if you split up the profiles, who did 13 and who did 12?
You know what? It was not an even split process, and that was something I struggled with in the beginning. That Colleen has written more of the profiles than I have, but I've also tried to take on the marketing side of things, just because you did take on the social media connection. So there was definitely an imposter syndrome in the beginning, thinking, oh, I didn't really earn my equal keep with this book. But I think we just bring our own strengths to it, right?
Yeah. And the current one is, I think you're doing one more than I am this time.
Yeah,
I think you might have 13. Yeah. And I don't feel any imposter syndrome.
I've gotten over that now.
Yeah, that's funny, and that's a good question. But we're still making the same money, Michelle. Don't worry. I'm not like you and Kathie.
No, it's even Steven,
If you had to compare this book with a different book, what book would that be?
Okay, for the record, this is one of my students. That's a good inquiry question. Am I right, teachers who are here? That's like a thinking kid right there. You should answer that one.
I can picture the cover of it and I cannot think of the title.
I just got one. It's a cool one and it's about future jobs. Yes. And that one was neat. It's available at McNally in the nonfiction section. And it took about, I don't know, 12 jobs. And it talked like one was a cloud chaser, one was a plastics fisherman. So jobs that would be in the future and why. And there was tons of infographics. It's in the classroom if you want to borrow it next time you're there, Anna. But I thought that was a neat take. But I don't know any book that's like ours that profiles individuals from like such a wide range.
I've seen books that have focused on jobs, like jobs in the outdoors, a whole book about any area or something like that. And I've seen like unique jobs that you could do, but no, I haven't seen anybody that's profiled. There was one, just I think it wasn't Discovering Boundaries, but it was similar.
Oh, No Boundaries.
No Boundaries. Yes, that was the one. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
one. I would say that's maybe most similar I've read to what we did.
Plus, like the original intent was like a how-to manual. So lots of times kids in my class would say they want to be a marine biologist. Well, we live in Winnipeg. So, you know, if they want to swim with sharks, that might be a tricky job. So how do you go about getting that job? And that was actually Christina Marquez was one of the very first people that I approached. She said yes, and she's on Discovery Shark Week, which is super cool. So good. That's my girl. Thank you. And she was also at Take Your Kid to Work today. Yeah. Aren't you sick of me yet? No. My own kids aren't here. What does that tell you?
And we actually have local talent in this book too, that I think would be, I wanted to shout out to. So
small, like little known author named Dave Robertson, who we also,
I'm kind of hoping I think he's got most of the titles on the McNally bestseller list. So maybe we could bump him off this week, but he is included in the book. So I guess technically he's still going to
He's like, no, whatever you do, don't bump off him.
We'll do a display and just open his picture on the display. So, also we did the sisters, the entrepreneurs who run Generate Cakes. We did Christine Bruno Gunther, who runs Feast Cafe Bistro. Leah Hextall, who's play-by-play. Yeah, so it was really nice to be able to talk to some local people too, and showcase local talent in a book that's going to be.
Can I tell you a quick embarrassing story? So I dropped the book off for Ashley and Jenna are the owners of Generate Cakes, and I don't know if they're watching, but I meant to email because they have this beautiful office. And so I walked in expecting there to be a reception desk, but there wasn't. I followed them on all their socials. I interviewed them, so I feel like I know them even though we've never met. They didn't really know where I was coming. So I walk in and they're in a boardroom and it's just Ashley there with two other people. And I walk in and I'm like, hi, Ashley. And she had no idea who I am. And like, I'm holding the book, but it doesn't say like, this is for you, Ashley. So I'm like, can I have a hug? She must have been like, we need better security. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Ashley. I felt so stupid, but like I felt like we were buddies.
Yeah.
I get that.
So did you travel much to interview people, or were all the long distance non-Winnipeg interviews done over Zoom?
Everything was Zoom.
Or just by phone.
Yes.
Yeah. And that made time. I remember getting up at 6 because the stunt woman was in the UK, and so she was available at like 2, and so I had to. Well, I always get up early, but I had to like finagle my schedule. I was late for a PD because I was interviewing somebody in Portugal for the new book that's coming out. So yeah, trying to end me and time change like.
I just interviewed someone this morning. It was 5:30 in the morning our time, 4 p.m. in India. So I'm always worried with those that I'm gonna
you're gonna screw it up.
So Google multiple times.
Wouldn't that be fun if we could travel?
It would be
We should ask Pajama Press to pay for our international travel.
We could at least go around to visit all these people and do talks wherever they are. Those are good questions.
Oh no, oh, it's my sister. This is gonna. Oh, okay.
One of my questions is going to be, who's your favorite co-writer? And then I thought, I'm not even going to go down that road. Okay, John, repeat all that for the folks at home.
So that was a question from somebody who may or may not be biologically related to somebody else, regarding whether or not they were going to interview any family members around this book. And the follow-up the follow-up part was a bit lost in laughter. Could I ask you to repeat that? Oh yes, Colleen, who is your favorite co-writer?
Well,
And remember who you're co-writing another one with?
That's so first of all, interviewing a family member who perhaps owned a tennis club, like say Taylor Tennis, which is accepting new membership, would be a good person to interview. You're right, Nancy. And my favorite collaborator, you know, I've just worked with so many talented people. It's really hard to choose. Because you
Good answer.
Well, this is an interesting follow-up question from Victor, actually. How has writing this book together influenced your relationship with one another?
Oh, we don't talk anymore.
Oh, definitely, like get together more often or chat more frequently. And yeah, I would say it's definitely made us, I know you better than I did before.
Oh, yeah, no, and a little codependent too.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest.
I know. We've been talking a lot in the last few weeks, just as we've been getting, you know, I've contacted this person. What do you think about this person?
Yeah.
And we kind of got through the point where most of the people are settled, and they're like, what am I going to?
I know.
What am I going to text her about? I have to check in.
But I did say, let's write it. Yeah, no, definitely all good. I think maybe Victor wanted us to say like, yeah, I can't stand Kathie. You should. No, that's sad. Sorry.
Still good blood.
Yeah,
between us.
What grade were you thinking of when you wrote this book?
Question. Well, typically middle grade is like 9 to 12. So I thought like grade 3 to kind of grade 7 or 8. I would hope my students, it's in the classroom. I do know there's a young lady behind you who I think is sort of grade 2-ish. Oh, wow. So you could ask her after to see. And I've got my nephew here who's in grade 2. So you could see what he thinks, because I'm pretty sure he has it at home.
I will say though that we started this book 2 years ago, and my daughter, who's hi honey, was 17 at the time. So I was thinking a lot about her, and actually I dedicated the book to her as she goes on to find her own dream job, and just wanting her to see, I guess, through the process of me just talking about things, how many options there are out there, and that you don't have to know what you're doing, and it's okay for you to change your mind, and just to know that, follow what your dream is. So I would say that even though it's kind of marketed at that, it's something that I've heard teachers already saying they're going to use in their high school, like just to kind of talk about career paths and options. So,
and my husband read it.
Yeah, and my husband read it.
Yeah,
So that was pretty
yes,
awesome.
I know. We were actually going to make both of you come up and give you a quiz on your reading, but you read it so long ago that would be very nice. But yeah, you got off lucky. Cameron.
How many jobs they created and to a dream job? How many? What's bigger than you?
Yeah.
Like, what was the percentage you could say of people that ended up in jobs they hated? Dream job.
Yeah, good question.
So this question is, how many people were in jobs that they hated and went back to their dream jobs? And what percentage just found themselves in their dream jobs after just pushing directly toward it?
I would say there were I didn't interview anybody who went back to a job, who started something, tried something else, and then went back to what you originally did. I did talk to people who left seemingly really like successful careers just because they wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that. I would say there was a good portion of people who had a career or starting down a path before they found what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I interviewed a mathematician named Eugenia Chang, who's quite famous. She's got like a YouTube channel. She's written books herself. And she was interesting because she had gone on a tenure track to be a professor and then realized it wasn't for her, and then did like a full about face and moved cities, found a completely different line of work as still a mathematician. But I thought that was inspiring because her point was that you can be in your field, but you need to give yourself permission to not like stick to the exact narrow path you thought you were going to go on. So I found that, I hope that translated into the profile, so that kind of the same message that you were saying.
Well, it's funny, the interview that I was doing this morning, she had had a couple of careers before she got into the line of work she's in right now. And she said, none of that's wasted. Like I learned skills that from this job and this job that have made me better, that I'm just bringing to the new job.
Yeah.
So, you know, she didn't see it as any wasted time at all. So.
Going back to the question just before this, we have confirmation from Galia that she is using your book in their nonfiction support program.
Thank you.
Awesome. She's in Queens, New York, so we should do a field trip there.
We should, absolutely. We have some very supportive, Colleen and I used to run an online book club together, the MG Lit online book club. And we started it during COVID. So we had some very loyal followers who have, many I think are online tonight and have just been great supports for us. Yeah. Yes, we're very lucky.
And speaking of people tuning in from the States, Sherry from Texas was wondering, were there any nonfiction authors or books that served as mentors for you as you wrote this book?
Good question, Sherry.
Honestly, oh gosh, like I want to say no right away. There is a book by Pajama Press about the girl who rode the shark.
Yes.
And I kind of use that as a guide for like what it would look like in the end. And just nonfiction books in general helped about like sidebars, because neither of us had read one before, and word count. But yeah, I haven't seen a book that kind of did what we were doing.
I read a book once that covered like unusual jobs, like you could be paid to be a funeral guest or wedding. But I don't know if I'd
it was
really
more
say
quirky
that.
though, right?
Yeah,
Like
it
ours
was,
is trying to be more instructional.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess not.
Well, we have a question from Jean, who was wondering, Colleen, has any of your research for this book inspired possible fictional characters for the future?
That's a good one. And the quick answer would be, of course, because everything does. But there's something else I'm working on that I'm not going to talk about right now, but there's definitely some tie-ins that, I'll just leave it at that. Super vague. Just what you were hoping for, Jean. Sorry.
And to put you on the spot, Kathie, Colleen was wondering, now that you've written nonfiction, are you interested in writing fiction as well?
Me, no, that's my husband laughing. No, you know what? I have always had a passion for reading and learning and sharing. I've always kind of felt that that's my purpose, is to just kind of learn what's going on in the world around me and share that with other people, whether it's been through the work that I do or the books that I share online. And I read I read more fiction than I do nonfiction. And I have so much respect for people who can put together a story like that. I don't see myself ever doing that. That's not true. You know what? It is, but I would love to give a novel a verse world sometime. I wouldn't, but yeah, don't hold your breath for that one.
And were there any other questions at all? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I believe there are some other things planned for this evening.
Yes.
So we'll turn things over to
All
you.
right. Well, I have to apologize. Lots of times we get cookies for our guests, and today we didn't. Thank you, some of you, for not leaving and kicking chairs over and leaving in a fury. We do have some trivia questions, though, and in true, unashamed self-promotion, they are my books. So you're gonna have the prize. Okay, the first question is, cardiologists are interested in the health of what? Oh, Kathie, you get to pick the winners, or the guessers, I should say.
Harry, I will go with you. You bet.
Correct. You may come into the book after all the cords are gone, Harriet, because I don't want you to trip and sue McGalley Robinson, my favorite bookstore. Okay, number 2. If you do bobs, buzz cuts, and fades, what is your job?
Oh, Mrs. Foreman.
Yes, we'll accept hairdresser or barber. Excellent job. Number 3, if you use colors, fabrics, and other objects to improve your living spaces, what is your job? Yes, an interior designer. Good job, Anna. All right, number 4. What job works with yeast, flour, and fondant?
Oh, there's a hand back there.
Yeah, Brianna? Yes, correct. Baker. Okay, the last one. Name one job we have talked about tonight that is in the book.
Go ahead.
A smoke jumper. Congratulations. Yay. So we'll have to use the honor system, and I have the books up here when we're all finished. But I'll turn it over to Kathie now
All right.
for some thank yous.
Yes, we have so many people we would like to thank tonight. First of all, thank you to all of you for coming, and especially because it's Irene Canadian Day, and as us both being Canadian authors now, I just appreciate the support for all the Canadian creators and the content that we make here. So we also want a big thank you to Scott Ritchie, who did all the illustrations in this book. It looks absolutely amazing. It just brought so much to this book that, you know, that more than just the photographs would have. So thank you to Scott for that. Thank you to the whole team at Pajama Press. So to Gail, Erin, Quinn, Lorena, Samantha, yeah. I'm forgetting anybody? Nope, I think that's all good. And of course, thank you to McNally Robinson for hosting us. This is our home away from home. And it was a huge thrill for me to be able to be here tonight, just having attended so many book launches, and to be sitting up here is a real honor. So thank you, McNally. Thank you, John, for all the support. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody.
And I'm going to keep being grateful in just a moment. But before I do, I just wanted to briefly review the signing procedure for tonight. So as mentioned earlier, we're going to ask that you all remain in your seats for just one moment while we make sure that Colleen and Kathie do safely make their way over to the signing table. At that point, you'll be able to join us over there and get a copy of the book signed. I know you don't need to pay for the book before you get it signed, just please do pay for the book. There are also copies available at our cash desk, and we have copies on display. So basically, wherever you wander here in the store, you will find copies of this, but they are centralized at the signing table and at the cash desk. This video will remain live on YouTube, so if you'd like to revisit it or share it with anybody who couldn't be here, please do feel free to do so. We're so grateful to everybody who did join us on YouTube. We had a very rambunctious and very positive crowd, and I'll be sure to share all of your comments with Kathie and Colleen. And thank all of you for joining us here tonight as well. It wouldn't be a party without you folks, and we're so grateful that you could make it out. Thanks again to Pajama Press for publishing this book, for making this evening a possibility, and I'll ask all of you to join me one more time in thanking Kathie MacIsaac and Colleen Nelson. Thank you.